Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here. I have a special guest, Sara King, with me today. How are you, Sarah?
I'm great today. A little chilly though.
It is. It is. I've got my scarf all rugged up as well. It's chilly where I am too. So it is great to have you here and really looking forward to diving in a little bit more around your business journey, your background and experiences as well. So just to give everyone the heads up about who you are, if they haven't come across you before, you are the founder of the Leadership Catalyst. You have been developing teams and leaders now for over 20 years, and you really specialize in working with organizations around hybrid workplace leadership and also when it comes to leadership and change as well. You've worked with brands like IAG, Medicare Australia, and Integral. So just to name a few, of course, I'm sure over the 20 years, there's been many more in there as well. So it's great to have you here.
Thanks, Amy. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, I would love to just dive in and see how this all got started, Sarah, because I know for some people that are listening to this, if they've been working in organizations for a long time, maybe they're a leader themselves, maybe they're an executive, and they're kind of just like really struggling with either their own leadership development or, they might have a little inkling around starting their own business and developing themselves that way. So I'd be really curious to hear your journey around how you went from just working in organizations and working your way up to then making the decision that, I'm going to start my own company.
Well, it was it wasn't an overnight it was a journey. So probably about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer, I got the sense that my next step from an organizational perspective wasn't going to be moving up within the organization or yet another role within the organization I was working with. And I had a sense too that I really wanted to pursue my passion and my purpose, and that is around developing leaders and organizations and helping them to thrive. And I became really committed to this idea of moving into my own business. And I was lucky enough to have an opportunity when my organisation restructured to make that transition, leave on really fantastic terms, leave a really strong legacy behind, but be moving towards something.
Yeah.
So that was a really positive experience for me. So, and I've been studying and working and thinking about it. And I didn't have a deadline as to when it was going to happen, but I knew that that was what my next step was going to look like.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's quite common, when you hit a point in your career and you're kind of like, well, what's next? Like, what is that next step? And maybe it is with the organization you're with, maybe it's not. And so I think it was really, really quite cool that you got to explore that as well and kind of have that space to really work out what you were really passionate about. Is that kind of how the ball got rolling there?
Yeah, and I think, what really informed the decision was knowing that if I stayed within the organisation and kept kind of climbing the career ladder, I was actually going to be moving further away from the work that I was really passionate about. So once I'd sort of landed that level of clarity, it became really obvious what my next step needed to be.
Yeah. Fantastic. And so now sort of in your own business, like you've made that leap, you've made that jump, just like that. I'm sure it was just as easy as that.
Yeah.
What were some of the initial things and initial hurdles that came up for you when you kind of made that decision of like, okay, this is what I'm passionate about. This is where I know I can add value. What was that like in terms of just going from being in your role to then running your own business?
Well, it's still definitely a work in progress. I think the biggest transition for me is going from being able to outline a clear agenda, organisationally speaking, to doing business development. So I went into this business because I love coaching leaders and working with teams and so on. It's fair to say that I don't love business development activities. It's not the part of, like, I'm fine with managing expenses and invoicing and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But business development probably was the hardest thing for me. I'm used to being able to sell the services internally, so sell the programs, sell that sort of stuff. And the biggest shift for me was actually mentally having to sell myself because I'm working with people who might not know me. And so, but my biggest barrier was actually me, not anything else.
Got it. And that's really normal as well. I think we have, the organization structure and the brand and the teams and everything surrounding us. And then you kind of head out onto your own, and then you're like, well, my emails aren't working today. Like, how do I fix this? Yeah. And it's really normal that, like, you have a really unique set of skills around leadership, organizational development. Like, that is just, it comes so easy to you, and that's where you add a lot of value. And so, the areas when you run a business, you also realize that I have to be head of marketing, I have to be head of sales, I have to be head of finance and operations and all these extra components.
And I think that was the hardest thing. And I think the other challenge is obviously the uncertainty of running your own business and having to think about, well, what's my revenue projections and so on. And I don't say that because it's problematic. It's just something that was quite different to be thinking about.
Yeah. It's it becomes necessary, doesn't it?
Yeah. Still got to feed the family.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's great. And so the work that you found yourself doing, like, to start with, and I know that you're working with clients, you're really, really busy in terms of, like, lots of clients coming through for you.
Yes.
What kind of clients do you work with, and how do you help them? How did you work that piece of the puzzle out in the beginning?
My main client groups are sort of medium to large organisations, and I'm doing a range of work with them. So I'm doing some consulting work, so looking at working with organisations around culture change strategies or culture measurement, etc. I'm doing team health checks with some organisations, which is fantastic. And then the other piece is obviously the coaching piece, and I've got clients from a range of industries. Most are sort of mid to senior, quite senior experienced leaders. And I've got a couple of brand new, just stepped into their first leadership role, which is really interesting. So I'm working across a range of industries: insurance, export, health. One aspect of my coaching is really focusing in on a leader's mindset and how they can actually shift that to produce the outcomes that they're looking for.
Yeah, fantastic. And what do you love most about the work that you get to do now? Like, if you can kind of think back to when you first had the idea to start a business, and then now that you're in a place where you're working with the right kinds of clients, you've got the work coming in and you're getting to do what you enjoy. What are some of the aspects that have been really quite different for you when it comes to your life?
So there's the practical aspects of being able to run a business on my terms and be around for my young adult kids as they're going through various things. So that's one thing. I think the thing that I most enjoy is actually the capacity to create influence and impact for people across a range of different roles and with a range of different scenarios. And the biggest thing is when you can just see somebody's energy shift. So in a coaching conversation, you have that moment where somebody hears what they've just said and they realise the power of what they've just said, and it shifts everything for them. Their whole demeanour, their body language, their capacity to take action. And I really love hearing when that goes beyond just having the insight into making the changes and really shifting things. So that's probably, and then when I'm working with a team, it's actually those moments where you can almost hear a pin drop as the whole team sort of listens to a comment that was just made. And it really transforms the relationship that they have with each other, how they work, how they're seen by the broader business. So it's, for me, it's kind of being able to visibly see those impacts and see then the flow on ripple effect into the broader organisation. And if I use one example, I was working with one client the way they talk to themselves was just not kind. And actually getting them to start noticing that and actually start talking to themselves the way that they talk to their team created quite a significant impact. So that's one thing. It all depends, obviously, on what the client brings to the coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love hearing that, because I think, we hear just in the mainstream media about all of the turmoil that's been happening, obviously, the last couple of years, and what's to come as well. And there's always, like, it has an effect on people, in the workplace as well. And I think when you're working with people like you do at such a deep level, and with the teams as well, the impact that you get to make on them in their workplace and in their day-to-day, as well as in their future career prospects as well, I think is really, really awesome.
Yeah, it definitely fills up my cup. And I think the other thing to think about is just that capacity to meet people where they're at and provide a safe, non-judgmental partner to challenge their thinking, to really help them move forward, is such a satisfying thing to be doing.
Yeah, awesome. And for people listening to this who, might be looking at setting up their own business as a coach or consultant in various different fields and avenues, what are some of the things that I guess maybe you didn't expect as much when you first started the business that now that you could kind of share as like a little insights of lessons that you've learned along the way?
Stuff takes time.
Yeah.
So it takes time to build a pipeline. So that would be lesson number one. Lesson number two is get a business coach. I kind of rationally knew all the things that I needed to know, but I really needed some structure around that and needed somebody to challenge me and to push me forward, and a group of people to kind of be open arms to work with.
Yeah.
So get a business coach would be second point. And the third one is people are so kind and people are generous. And I've walked into this with very much an abundance mindset of sharing and knowing that if I put abundance into the world, abundance will come back to me.
Yeah.
And that sounds a little bit woo, but I think it's just around bringing that clear set of values in how I operate as a business.
Yeah.
And my experience has been that people are overwhelmingly supportive and kind and willing to share and support and guide and push. When you go in with that mindset, that's what you receive back from people. So I don't feel like I'm scrambling or competing with people. I feel like there's plenty of work around.
Yeah.
And so I'm always looking to connect people and pull people together, rather than kind of feeling like I'm scrambling for the next coaching session. That's not how the world is, in my experience at least. I've gone into it with this mindset of abundance, and that's what I've experienced.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And I know, you're a part of the tribe that we have, where we have lots of executive coaches, leadership coaches, facilitators, career coaches, many doing seemingly what seems like the same thing. But when you actually get to know everyone in the group, everyone has their own unique flavor.
Yeah. And
everyone has their own unique spin on things and areas where they work. And so I think it's really interesting that you have that abundance mindset, because I have a similar approach where there's enough work out there for everyone, really more than enough work out there for everyone, when you know how to get it. So
and that was the other thing that I found a little bit more challenging, and is probably my number 4 on my list, is actually having a plan for how you're going to develop your business.
Yeah.
And that was the thing I felt that I was probably weakest on.
Yeah.
I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how I was going to get there.
Yeah. And I remember when we first started talking, when, we were working out exactly that plan for you, Sarah, too. And what do you think has made like the biggest difference since we've worked together and since you've been a part of the tribe?
I think having that clear blueprint for how to leverage LinkedIn has been really useful, because having come to it as I've had it for years and had quite a decent network. But I think one of the things that I didn't anticipate as much when I was starting out the business is how am I actually going to develop a pipeline of work for the business, and really understanding from you and from the work that we've done together how the blueprint for how to leverage LinkedIn, but just understanding how to generate leads, how to connect with people that I don't know, how to transition that from just a connection into something that's got potential, has been really useful. Getting the confidence to publish content. So I'm now writing a blog, which is not something I ever thought I would be doing.
Amazing.
But writing a blog and actually getting myself out there has been probably quite liberating, because I have a voice and I do have things to say. And, I've got this deep sort of set of skills and capabilities around leadership and teams and that sort of space. And it's given me a platform to actually share it. And I don't think I would have approached it with quite the same level of confidence or clarity without the work that we've done together.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And I think it's really normal that, putting yourself out there, like we were talking about at the beginning, can be quite confronting, when you're going out there on your own.
Terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. Quite confronting is probably underplaying it a little bit, but it's really, really normal. And I think for anyone that's listening to this, it's really useful to know that everyone goes through that. And in fact, it never ends, the voices in your head and everything, like whether you're running a 6-figure business, 7-figure business, 8-figure business, like at each new level of your revenue, different challenges and different things pop up. So it is certainly not something you can avoid if you want to be in business, that's for sure.
That is definitely for sure. And I think, we all have a little bit of the imposter syndrome. Why would anybody want to listen to what I have to say? But the reality is we all have something of value to say. We just need to have the courage to say it.
Yeah, love that. And since you started sharing, like, what are some of the differences you've noticed with your network and even just some of the response that you've had? Was it as you expected or different or terrifying? What was that like, Sarah?
I think overall the feedback's from my network has been really positive, and I've found that I'm reconnecting with people that perhaps I haven't been in contact with for a lot of time. They're sort of reacting to the articles that I'm posting and so on. I'm getting quite a lot of work in the consulting space. It's not kind of what I was expecting people were going to offer on the basis of my posts. So that's been unexpected. I think the other thing that's been a really fabulous outcome is people reaching out to me and reconnecting, and then them proactively saying, hey, I've got this thing, can you help me with that? It's just the magic of networks and connections and relationships. And I don't think everything stays on LinkedIn, but I think, it's a great place to just interact with people and start rebuilding or building relationships with people. And that's been amazing.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, it's just the first step in the process, as you know. So being able to get out there and reconnect with some people in your network, like you said, as well, is really, really important. And, landing clients is never a bad thing, Sarah. Having clients reach out to you is never a bad thing.
It's never a bad thing. Well, and that's the thing. When they reach out to you, it's not about selling. It's about meeting their needs. And that is so much easier.
It definitely is. It doesn't feel like you're that, used car salesman or saleswoman. It's more around like just finding a match, when they reach out to you and they're saying, hey, it's a lot easier to work out, you can be really selective, is this the kind of client that I want to work with? Is this the right level that I want to work? Is the investment the right level of investment for me if I'm working with premium clients? Like you can work all of that out, which is awesome.
It's excellent. So I really feel like that's helped me to ramp up the speed of the business and to take the business in a direction that feels very aligned for me. I think the other thing that's been really useful in working with you is just the challenge that you put to us around how we're choosing to spend our time and what are the value-adding activities that we do and what's not value-adding.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to just, as you're starting up a business, to take on everything and say, I'll just do everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, just really thinking about, well, is that a good use of my time? Could I be doing that, doing a business development conversation instead? Or, could I be actually, having a coaching session in that time instead of managing my invoices or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of that transition from going from, working in an organization, feeling like you have a job, to then running a business and being able to build up the right kind of team around you as well. So not you having to do it forever,
Yeah.
In terms of like business growth, what have you seen in terms of the growth in your business from, when we started working together and you started working with the tribe until now?
I went from nothing to having a really solid slate of work. So lots more coaching clients come in, quite a few sort of team coaching sort of engagements happening. So I can feel, I'm still very early days, Amy, as you know. But I can feel the momentum really ramping up.
Yeah.
So it's made a huge difference in terms of just keeping me energized during those tough times when you go, what have I done?
Yeah.
And really help me to sort of stabilize and recognize the work that goes into building that pipeline, rather than just putting myself out there and hoping it was it would happen. So I think that really crystallized for me what was necessary in order for that to happen. So I feel really positive about the business.
Yeah.
The slate is starting to fill up. I've got quite substantial pieces of work on, and I've put myself out there for some big proposals as well. So perhaps things that I wouldn't have considered doing previously. So that's been pretty exciting.
Fantastic. And what are you most excited for? Like, if we sort of forecast over the next 12 months, what are you most excited about in terms of the business and where you really want to take it?
I think one of the things I'm most excited about is running a Women in Leadership program a couple of times later this year, which I've teamed up with some people, and we're launching it out into the ether. And I'm just really excited to pay it forward. So to work with female leaders who are kind of mid to senior level and are really wanting to break through and sort of show up as the biggest and best versions of themselves. I think that feels very exciting to me, to be able to make that impact.
Fantastic. And where can people reach out and find you, Sarah, if they're interested in the Women in Leadership program or other work that you do? Where's the best place to go and find you? And a bit of a trick question here. Just following you.
Well, I'm going to start with LinkedIn, Amy.
Oh, surprise.
I do also have a website, but my LinkedIn profile is much more active, and is absolutely the easiest way to get in contact with me. And I'd love people to follow me or connect with me.
Yeah, awesome. And just one last piece of advice, Sarah, for anyone that's either really considering starting and launching their business now that you've sort of been on the other side of it, or is on the fence about, working with myself and the team in the Aligned Tribe team, what would you recommend for them?
I think join, you frequently have the 5-day programs.
Yeah.
I joined that kind of quite skeptical, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Kind of, okay, because you get approached by when you start your business, you get approached by a lot of business coaches.
100%. Yeah.
And I am a deep skeptic. So I started your 5-day program kind of going, what's this gonna do for me? And by the end of it, I could actually start to see the value that was generating. So that's a fantastic way to try it out and have that opportunity to work with yourself and sort of see what you have on offer. And I've been part of the in-demand coaching program now, and that's just made the hugest difference in terms of my level of confidence. The online learning has been fantastic, really high quality, and the tools that you've made available to us as part of that have been really excellent as well. So I use them all the time, particularly when I'm thinking about business development activities.
Yeah, fantastic. And I was exactly the same when I started my business. And it continues as well. No matter what stage of business you're at, you get bombarded with different people and different things that are happening. And you're like, how do I work out what's the best thing for me? So I really appreciate it because, you know, as you know, being involved in the group, you know, we're really genuine and authentic, and we're in the trenches and we walk the talk. So it's awesome to be able to get to work with people like yourself and just give you that place where your business can absolutely fly. And you should be so proud of how far you've come in such a short space of time, Sarah. It's been really, really awesome to watch.
And yeah, it's been fantastic to work with the group and just see all the different personalities and different businesses that people are getting up off the ground. So it's really exciting to be part of that as well.
Yeah, brilliant. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Sarah. I really appreciate it. I know that there's so many nuggets of gold in here for people who are either, you know, wanting to be where you are right now in terms of launching their business, and also for other leaders and executives and organizations that are listening to this as well, in terms of being able to really tackle this new hybrid world that we're in and all of the changes that are to come as well. So totally encourage you to reach out to Sarah on LinkedIn. You will see her quite active there. Maybe read one of her blogs as well. So there you go. Thanks so much, Sarah. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.